Welcome to the January 17th meeting of the Mobile Planning Commission. I'd like to take a moment to review our general operating procedures. Our meeting is divided into two sessions, the public hearing session and the deliberation session. In the public hearing session, an application or group application on the agenda is called. The applicant makes his or her presentation. Commission members ask questions, if any. Members of the public make their comments. Only 4 people may speak for an agenda item or project and 4 against. Each speaker is limited to 5 minutes, subject to questions by the commission. At 4 minutes, a loud beep will indicate 1 minute left to speak, and at this point, please summarize your comments. All opposition speakers have finished. The applicant will be given time to respond. If you do intend to speak, please come to the podium, speak into the microphone, and give your name and address for our minutes. Please direct all comments to the commission only and not to the applicant or the audience. And please remember to speak directly into the microphone. On routine applications, the applicant may simply raise his or her hand if there are no objections to the staff recommendation. I will then announce that the applicant is in full agreement with those recommendations. If there are any questions, the applicant will be given an opportunity to respond. After hearing all applications, the commission will go into deliberation session. In the deliberation session, the commissioners discuss each application with input from staff as necessary, but with no input from the audience. The commissioners then vote on each application, and the results of voting can be learned from the planning department. If some issue arises in the deliberation session that were not addressed in the public hearing, the chairman has the discretion either to allow additional comments pertaining to those issues in order to resolve them, or call for the application to be held over for discussion at a future meeting. Occasionally, 1 or more commission members may recuse themselves from discussing and voting on a given application. A recusal does not necessarily mean the member is directly involved with the application or the applicant. Depending on the circumstances, ethical rules may require a recusal when there's only the slightest appearance of a conflict of interest. If a regular recuses, a supernumerary will vote in their stead unless both supernumeraries are already voting due to absences. Planning Commission makes final decisions subject to appeal on subdivisions, planning approvals, plan unit developments, PUDs. The Planning Commission only makes recommendations on zoning applications, with the City Council making the final decision. Please turn on, mute, silence all cell phones at this time. Commissioners and staff, please remember to turn on your microphones when speaking. Roll call. Myself, Ms. Libby Latham. Here. Mr. John Ballas. Ms. Shirley Sessions.
Here.
Mr. Taylor Atchison. Mr. Matt Anderson.
Here.
Mr. Nick Omberger.
Here.
Ms. Bess Rich.
Here.
Mr. Don Embry.
Here.
Mr. Cart Blackwell. Mr. Doug Anderson. We have a quorum. We'll start with our attentions. Item number 114 Austell Avenue. It's recommended for a 1-year extension. Is the applicant present? Are you in agreement? Applicant is present and in agreement of the extension. Is there anyone else here to speak for this? Anyone here to speak against? Thank you. Item number 2, 4055 Stein Avenue. Recommended for tentative approval. Is the applicant present?
Good afternoon. Joe Azari, CCC 170 Omni Park Drive. I had one correction on the agenda item here. The correct address of the house 4075.
That's a pretty big correction.
But other than that, we're in agreement.
Okay.
Big correction now.
Correction is noted.
That was easy.
Is there anyone else here to speak for this? Anyone here to speak against? Thank you. Item number 3, Broadway 3-Notch Road subdivision, 5768, 5770, 5772, 3-Notch Road. Recommended for tentative approval. Is the applicant present? Are you in agreement with staff recommendations? Applicant is present and in agreement. Is there anyone else here to speak for this? Anyone here to speak against? Thank you. Item number 4, I'm recused.
Mr. Gaines recused. 451, 453, 457, and 450 Wanaker. Applicant present.
Jerry Bird Surveying for the applicant. Basically, I guess we're in agreement with everything except, well, I'm going to talk to the subdivision application and the conditions on it first, and a lot of those will apply to PUD and planning approval also. Number 2, 3, and 4 talks about corner radiuses. Per that section, I would like to revise that or as approved by city engineering. I'm not sure a large 25-foot radius would be appropriate on several of the street intersections, possibly the one at Virginia and Wanaker. But let them make a decision on that. Buck Street on number 6. It won't a setback 30 feet to provide for widening of Buck Street because it doesn't have curb and gutter. Buck Street and all the streets over there have been paved for a number of years. Apparently, appropriately, Buck has a 50-foot right-of-way, which is the minimum, but because it doesn't have curb and gutter, the norm is to require 60-foot right-of-way. I really don't think that's necessary. There's a sidewalk there located right at the right-of-way line. The 30-foot setback will get into the buildings fairly well. I had originally asked for a 10-foot building setback along Buck Street to miss a carport that's on the south end of the building, south end of the sanctuary. On number 7, on Lot B, which is where the present sanctuary is located, it's built in a location that was given Board of Adjustment approval when it was constructed, and it's probably located about 7 or 8 feet from the right-of-way line. And I asked for a 7-foot, I asked for a 5-foot building setback on that side, feeling like, okay, if something happened to that building, they're going to be asking for Board of Adjustment again to go back to the same location. So just putting a 5-foot setback on that would solve that problem. Real problem is Virginia Street, which is on the major street plan with an 80-foot right-of-way. Presently, Virginia Street is a 50-foot right-of-way. We would have to dedicate 15 feet for the whatever future widening of Virginia Street. It's probably been about 2 years ago, I guess. The city went through, widened, and improved the drainage on Virginia. It's 3 lanes, turn lane in the middle, 1 each way. Sidewalks on both sides, located within the 50-foot right-of-way. And dedication of 15 feet on Virginia Street would really hurt the development as proposed on Lot A. It would get into the parking that is proposed, probably 10 feet off of about 12 parking places. Possibly a 5-foot dedication would still miss those parking places and leave adequate room for landscaping that's required.
Which number are you referring to?
All right, excuse me. Virginia Street went back to number 1, I'm sorry, on the subdivision.
And the city wanted 40?
Yes, they want 40 from the center line. I'm thinking 30 from the center line at best.
So you basically have issues with all the comments. I'm following you.
I was trying
Yeah,
to follow.
the first 7 isn't a problem. But the easy ones were 2, 3, and 4, which city engineering could require the 25-foot radius, or could go down to something that doesn't really take a lot of land if it's not necessary.
Well, can we address, go ahead and talk to you and get your comments and staff's comments about the curb cuts first and the radiuses on number 2 and number 4.
Yeah.
Well, 2, 3, 4.
Numbers.
Yeah, let's get those straightened out first. So they're requesting it to be in compliance with VD6, requiring the radius to be 25 feet.
25.
And what are you asking for, just for them to stay the
It
same?
probably would be a variable. I'm thinking 25 maybe on Virginia and Wanneker, that one intersection.
Right.
And the others, just city engineering, review the curb and what is really necessary, not necessarily 25. It might be 15.
Okay.
It variable. It may be, if they decide it needs to be 25, it'll have to be 25.
So if we change that, we've got to, allow a variance for section VD6
Well,
or waive that requirement. Yeah.
other wording has just been or as approved by city engineering.
I think
But
what-
I guess you can waive that and just give.
Well, for the purposes of the commissioners, I think what we've done in the past is we've encouraged you or the applicant to get as much as they can get. Oftentimes 25 feet is not practical because of the other existing infrastructure improvement. So maybe it's a 20-foot radius that they can get. Maybe if they can get 25, get 25. But if you can only get 10 or 15,
Yeah.
only get 10 or 15. It looks like at least one of your depictions here shows the sidewalks that are maybe already in place to some degree.
Yeah.
And if that's the case, I mean, you're going to be fixed, you're going to kind of be controlled by that existing sidewalk.
Right.
So the best way to do this would just be to not necessarily waive that requirement, but just put the stipulation that applicant has to satisfy city engineering requirements for the radiuses.
Yeah, if you look at item 8B, it says dedicate the corner radius, and then in parentheses, 25-foot minimum or as approved by the city engineer and traffic engineer. So if you want to apply that to those other comments, you could, and then that would leave it up to us to get as much as we can.
Does that work for you?
That's fine.
Staff sufficient from a staff standpoint?
I think changing the conditions that we have the flexibility to work with city and engineering has been done before and would be reasonable in this case.
All right, so that's number 2 and 4.
And 3.
Yeah.
2,
2,
3,
3, 4.
And then condition 8B in the engineering comments.
And then the setback issues for number 6 and 7.
Yeah, number 6 on Buck Street, I don't
What
know
did
that
you
really need a
say?
30-foot building setback. It's going to get into the corner of the building also. I had asked for 10 to miss it. They're asking for the dedication of 5. Well, no, they're not asking for dedication, to allow for dedication, which would mean I would have to give a 15-foot right-of-way. I would be proposing a 15-foot.
Is the building on a variance, did you say? Is that how?
Yeah,
they
the building's
got
already
that?
there, and it's there under a variance.
Yeah. And you're not changing the use of it,
That's correct.
so the variance would still stick? Okay.
The setback would not affect that existing building. It would affect any future construction.
On Buck Street, the center line of Buck?
Anywhere you apply the setback, it would go through the existing building. It would not require the portion of the building in setback to be removed. It would simply apply to any future construction.
But of course, those setbacks were in place when they went to the Board of Adjustment. whenever that sanctuary was built. And it was waived to be built right there, and I feel that if something happened to the building, they would be back there again, just saving, reduced setbacks would be saving an application to the Board of Adjustment.
But
It's
I think
already-
the staff is talking about
it's already-
any new building. Do I have
You
it?
already have a variance.
Sir?
You already have a variance, right?
Yes,
for
there's a
any
variance
new
for it
building.
setting right where it is.
Correct.
But if you show a building setback going through the building, if something happened to the building, then they're gonna have to build back or come back to the Board of Adjustment
Oh, I see.
and for it to be built back like it was.
Two things on that. One, the variance for the building would allow the building to be rebuilt in its exact same configuration. If you propose, the setback could be for any new construction beyond that already approved by the existing variance.
Okay, all right,
Yeah.
You write that down for us.
okay. All
Note
right,
to self.
lost that.
I can see that one, okay. So that takes out 6 and 7. I'm not arguing about 6 and 7 anymore, we'll take it just like the Planning Commission said it. But then, number 1 is dedication of additional right-of-way, which would be 15 feet along Virginia Street. And I don't know, if the city wants to tear down Ladd Stadium, we may not have any traffic up there and don't need a major thoroughfare.
This is a question for the staff. Does the right-of-way, I guess, as you're continuing, what's that going to be, east, does at some point, does it jog back in, or is it consistent from the corner of Weinecker? Yeah, those next. Is the right-of-way consistent until you get to Ladd?
Yeah.
It looks like that the right-of-way doesn't jog at this time, so that there haven't been any applications along this segment from Ladd Stadium to Houston Street that required right-of-way dedication. This major street designation probably was part of the 1960s major street plan originally.
Sure.
The commission could consider just having a building setback that would accommodate your right-of-way, and it looks like based on the site plan submitted that it would not affect the building, and that would allow the parking lot to be built as proposed.
Would the setback need to be changed over what's depicted? Would that need to be a different?
Well, the setback would be adjusted to as if right-of-way were being dedicated.
Yes, right.
And then it would just mean that, again, the proposed building would have to meet the setback as if it were a major street. But it looks like there's a sufficient room to provide that additional setback without impacting the design as submitted.
Yeah, for the road ever to be widened, I mean, there's, looks to be multiple properties, right-of-way would have to be acquired from before that.
Yes.
Right. Yeah.
The applicant, good with that solution?
Yeah, we can do this with the building setback. All right. And these comments, a lot of those would be whatever adjustments in the
comments are you-
subdivision is going to roll to the PUD and to the planning approval also.
Which comments were you, I'm sorry. When you say these
gosh,
comments,
PUD.
there's a lot of comments.
I never got
Say
to
all
marking
of
them
these
in here.
comments that we come
Oh.
in here apply.
Well,
Essentially, the first 7
well-
comments in the PUD conditions are the same
Oh, I didn't know
as
he was
in
on
the
PUD.
subdivision.
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
And then on the planning approval, I don't believe there's anything in here that discusses a corner radius at all.
All right.
So no changes may be necessary for the planning approval.
Okay. Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Byrd.
All right.
Is there anyone else here to speak in favor of this application? Is there anyone here to speak in opposition to it? Thank you. We'll move on to number 5.
Item number 5, Bean Commercial Subdivision, 5580, 5590 Todd Acres Drive. Both parts recommended for approval. Is the applicant present? Are you in agreement with staff recommendations? Applicant is present in agreement. Is there anyone else here to speak for this? Anyone here to speak against? Thank you. That closes public deliberation. Let the record show that Ms. Dennison is present. Dennison. Beginning with item number 114 Avenue, recommended for 1-year extension. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Properly moved and seconded. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Ms. Latham is recused. Item passes. Item number 2, 4075 Stein Avenue, Tut Hill Square subdivision, recommended for tentative approval. Is there a motion?
Move. Second.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion?
Does anything need to be notated about the address correction for the record? Okay, just making sure.
That's a good one.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Item passes. Item number 3, Broadway 3 Notch Road subdivision, recommended for approval. Is there a motion?
Move we approve, subject to staff's recommendations.
Properly moved and seconded. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Item passes.
Number 4, Mr. Gann is recused. Do y'all want to take all 3 together?
I'll take them separately if we could.
Separate them out?
Yeah, we got some things to do.
We'll have the subdivision first.
Subdivision move to approve based on staff recommendations.
Second.
Well, we had, I'm sorry, I missed something. Sorry,
Gotta
sorry.
make some
Yeah.
It is in the subdivision, okay, all right.
Yeah.
As modified.
Let me rescind my motion
Yeah, we got
and move to approve based on staff recommendations, changing item 1 in dedication, we'll have a building setback to 40 feet from center line. Item number 2, 3, and 4, leave as is, except we'll put a note that it will be per item 8B, dedicated, be in compliance with city engineering. And then item number 6 would be changing that to, that's approved with existing variance.
Any new construction and rebuild allowed by the variance,
The existing variance, okay.
correct?
And then item number 7, do we need to address anything on 7?
I think that's.
No?
25-foot setback line
Okay,
along other
yeah.
street frontages.
Yes. Okay.
I think we're okay on that one. So that's my motion.
Is there any discussion? I have some. Mr. Hamry, I think number 1, the way you worded it, may not be what he was asking for. Can you clarify?
He was wanting a I think, my understanding, we decided that a building setback off of Virginia Street of 40 feet from center line.
As if there
Well,
was a right-of-way donation.
The setback would be 40 feet plus 25 feet, so it's a total distance of 65 feet from center line.
So we need to check to 65 feet.
Right. Or we say setback of 25 feet from the future right-of-way edge of Virginia Street.
Okay, then we'll change it to, for the future setback of 25 feet.
Properly moved and seconded. All in favor of this motion as amended?
Aye.
Any opposed? The subdivision is moved. Let's move to the planned unit development.
Move to approve planned unit development based on findings, effects, and staff recommendations A, B, C, and F.
Is there any discussion?
And Mr. Henry, that would include the modifications necessary based on the changes to the
Based on the
sub.
subdivision changes, correct.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion passes. Section C, the planning approval.
Move to approve planning approval based on the findings of facts A and C.
Second.
Properly and seconded, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion passes. Thank you very much. Number 5.
Item number 5, 5580 and 5590, Todd Acres subdivision and zoning, both recommended for approval. Is there, take them together, is there a motion?
So moved. I'm sorry.
Properly moved, seconded, any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Item passes. That concludes the deliberations session. For new business, I'd like to appoint a rules committee to review and revise some of our operating rules as necessary. I would like Ms. Libby Latham, Jennifer Denson, and Taylor Atchison to be on that committee. Is there any other new business? Any old business?
Mr. Chairman, we do have new business. The Zoning Technical Advisory Committee will be meeting on Tuesday at 2 p.m. in the multipurpose room, which is in the atrium on the other side of the atrium, and they will be receiving the most recent draft copy of the proposed Unified Development Code. And after they have received that copy, as well as received the presentation, the Unified Development Code will then be released for public view, I believe, the next day on the 23rd. It will also be available with a website that includes a map that you can look and see how properties are proposed to be changed.
Bert, what was that day time again?
It is Tuesday, the 22nd at 2 p.m.
We will be, as we speak, are printing copies for distribution for the City Council and Planning Commission. Will be delivering those as soon as they are finalized. And I'll hand deliver them all hopefully by tomorrow.
Is there going to be a meeting for a city council to discuss the proposals?
I have a communication ready to go to you all, asking for instruction from your body as to how you like to handle that. But we are completely open to whether it's in a formal presentation or over a work session. But in that communication, it asks that you let us know how best to communicate with you.
Thank you. Thank you. Appreciate that. I have a question about the Rules Committee. Do they report back to the full body for changing any rules? Okay, thank you.
Two members in the planning jurisdiction. We don't have that planning jurisdiction anymore, so we need to have that lodge taken out.
Yeah. Any other business? Thank you. Meeting adjourned.
Carlos?
Yeah, that could be our winning.
I was trying, you know.
I was losing pages and numbers and